Well, there was a column apparently every month that came out in Tiger Beat called The Truth from Sean and Parker. So every month, girls would send in their questions and ask questions to Sean and Parker so you could see what was going on with them while they were doing the Hardy Boys.
Welcome to the Sean Squad Society podcast with your hosts, myself, Penny,
Cindy,
Dame Madonna,
and Doris.
Invite you to share our love and enthusiasm for all things Sean Cassidy, from his teen idol days to his recent adventure back on the road again. Please join us for our stories and memories that connected us to those happy days that helped create the Sean Squad Society podcast.
Welcome back. Today is just the three of us. Penny can't be with us, so you have just Cindy, Dame, and myself. And we're going to be talking about our favorite teenage sleuths, the Hardy Boys. On a previous episode, we talked in depth with Parker Stevenson, who, of course, was Frank Hardy. And Parker shared many stories about filming the show, the before they were stars guests, and working with Sean. You guys remember that?
I remember that.
I think my favorite part was when he said he had a bungalow or something, or they sat at the lunch table when the cafeteria.
Yes.
Here comes Alfred Hitchcock.
Alfred Hitchcock, do you believe that?
And he goes,
yeah,
hello.
he was so nervous.
And who are you?
yeah.
That was my favorite part of the interview. He was like, I'm just me, Parker, Mr. Hitchcock. Nobody.
He did not say his name. He just asked how the lunch was.
Yeah. But there were so many great parts of that episode, and I really enjoyed it.
It was a lot of fun.
It was, and I think that today with the Hardy Boys, we're going to have a lot of fun too.
Oh, yeah. We're going to continue the conversation. We're going to be chatting about some of those popular guests, of course, that were on the episodes. And we'll also share some of our favorite episodes, tell you which ones we liked the best. But I bet you didn't know the Hardy Boys was a regular feature in the 1950s Mickey Mouse Club. How many knew that? I didn't know that.
I kind of knew it.
Now. In the late 50s, there was the Mickey Mouse Club, and it was contracted with the author of the Hardy Boys. And I watched some of that, and I thought, I don't know about these shows, but it was nice for some of the kids back then because they couldn't wait to run home and watch these shows, just like, us watching them in the 70s, or you guys watching them in the 70s. They were always working on mysteries. It was based on the original books a little bit more, the first one, the Disney Mickey Mouse one. And it helped to capture the slightly, the nature of the Hardy Boys, which was a little bit rebellious but fun. It made kids feel like when they watched it that they were more grown up. So it was really based for the junior age. And to this day, it's still fun for us to go back and watch them, to put ourselves in that.
When I was a kid, Dame, they used to show reruns of the Mickey Mouse Club, like after school, I think. And so I would watch those reruns, and I loved watching those episodes of the Hardy Boys on that show. So in the 70s, when the Hardy Boys started, I was like, oh, that's the Hardy Boys from the Mickey Mouse Club. But I hadn't put it together in my head that it was going to be a different series.
Well, I have learned so much just by going back and doing the research. As a kid, when I would get off of the bus, I would have to wait for my dad to finish working at this logging company in Northern California. And I didn't have a TV at my house, but every day I would get to this trailer that I would wait in while my dad was working. And I remember watching Scooby-Doo. And I don't really like dark shows, but as a kid, Scooby-Doo never made me feel scared, but it made me enjoy it. And I just thought it was so much fun. And going back and watching these episodes, I really feel the same way. I feel like, okay, these were fun shows. And Parker, who we talked to, always seemed to be so calm in all of these shows. And that's just the way he was even when he talked to us. And so in the shows, with the new Hardy Boys, I say new 70s, he just was that person, even for Sean. Sean seemed to be the goofy one a little bit. And the older brother, Parker, as Frank, he seemed to be that same calm person that we talked to this last week.
Oh, and Damon, I have a question. You mentioned Scooby-Doo.
Yes.
They were detectives too.
Yes, and it just made me think of the same thing. And I'm always telling you
Yes.
girls, I don't like the dark stuff, and I don't want to watch that, or I don't
So it
want
was
to
a
talk about that.
More lighthearted mystery.
Yeah,
But yeah,
very similar.
Scooby-Doo was just a little a bunch of teenagers running around solving mysteries.
Exactly.
And it was a
Yeah.
cartoon, so of course it was a children's type of show. It wasn't really dark and
No, it didn't make me
mysterious.
scared. But you girls know how I am about. But the Hardy Boys shows were fun. There were a couple that I was like, oh, I'm not going to watch those. But most of them were actually fun. And my husband was in the middle of watching these with me too. And he said, this reminds me when I was a kid. Now let's watch The Love Boat, because that should be coming on next. So it just took us back to that decade.
Yes.
And whether I watched these all or not at that time, I have done that, within these last few weeks. And it's worth going back and watching these.
Yes.
Yes. And the whole premise was the Hardy Boys, Frank and Joe Hardy, are fictional teenage brothers and amateur detectives. Frank is supposed to be 18. Joe is supposed to be around 17. They live with their father and their mother and their Aunt Gertrude. So apparently they see their father do this work and they want to do it too. But they don't want it to be violent or anything. They made it.
Yes. They made it more
They made it fun.
Children age appropriate, because the book, which I never read, I think I read one.
Me too.
One Hardy Boys book. And were they a little younger than teenage? Were they like 10, or were they also in their late teens?
Well, that is the time when kids get excited about chapter books. And so it seemed like back in those days that this was a big deal for people to get the series or the set. And so every young boy thinks, you know what, I want to be a detective. My son used to buy the kit so that he could wear these glasses where he could see people behind him and stuff like that. And I was like, really, Luke?
I've seen those kits before to be a detective.
So he was all into it. So he had his grandma, who has an antique store, to give him these books. So it was a big deal to him. And now I have learned more about that Mickey Mouse Club, and how it was part of a show way back in like 1956, 1957.
Yeah, I never saw those. I didn't remember.
I watched a few of them online. I mean, anybody can do that, I guess. But I was just like, no wonder the newer Hardy Boys of the 70s just took off. I mean,
but were the characters, Frank and Joe Hardy, were they more 10, 11, 12, or were they late teenage, like 7? I remember
10,
them
11,
being
12.
boys. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the book, I think they were boys.
True. But with Frank and Joe, they seem to have that chemistry. And I could almost see them acting like the guys in the real show, like when they're playing the Hardy Boys. And just even talking to Parker, remember that he said something like this. I read this, that Parker recently told us about how they would go to work at 5 a.m. And these are his words. We were falling asleep all over the place. We were trying to stay awake, but the last shot we did was in a graveyard. You girls remember him talking about that?
Oh, yeah.
He was talking about
He said
that was a promo episode, I think.
Well, yes, you're right. And there was a scene, he said, like this, but they had to actually put a tarp over the top of the hole in the ground. So he said, we climbed out there and we shot our last scene under this tarp in a hole in the ground because we literally could no longer shoot because of the light.
The sun was coming up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they would work 18 hours a day. They would while they were, good thing they were young. I don't know about the other. But anyway, this show was supposed to be, wholesome and tame and fun. And so I'm sure they made it fun and they really had to get to know each other pretty well. And I remember when we talked to Parker that he said, no, he wasn't really a mentor for Sean. But later on, I read that Sean did feel like he was.
I would think so on the set. I mean, not so much with his concerts, but while he's on the set filming with him and he spent the whole day with him, he said they spent a lot of time together.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that Parker was a stability for him during that time on the set.
Well, maybe on the set, but remember, we're reading things that someone wrote 45 years ago, and Parker is telling us today that this is how it was. So maybe on the set, maybe back in the 70s, Sean did feel some sort of big brother connection, mentorship with Parker.
Well, they also said that they would work until like 2 or 3 in the morning, on Friday nights. Sean would actually leave and go off on tour for the weekend, and then he would just stagger back in on Monday morning, probably after some of those concerts that you girls went to. I don't know. Yeah, so he would come in like a cat that was dragged in, is what Parker
The double header he did in Chicago back then, and I remember reading he had the flu at those concerts. He had a fever, so I can imagine him flying in a snowstorm, doing 2 shows, and going back to do the Hardy Boys the next day. He must have been totally exhausted.
Yeah.
And I was also reading about the Hardy Boys too, and basically how they described the characters was Frank was the thinker and Joe was more impulsive and a little bit more athletic. So the 2 boys kind of worked good together in that respect, where they brought a little bit of each personality into the show, which you can tell while you watch the show. You know, Frank's always, okay, let's think about this. And Joe's like, okay, let's go do this. And
Yeah. I watched 2 over the weekend, and that was that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how they wanted them to be. That's how it was described that these characters are going to be like. So they were perfect for the parts.
And it's funny because when you listen to Parker's description of the show, he said the Hardy Boys was the show that was just sort of sweet, but Sean would fall in love with some girl, or then she'd fall in love with him, and there'd be a sweet, like little kiss or something, which we didn't always like.
Oh, no, Joe always got to kiss the girl.
Joe got the girl, or got to kiss the girl, yeah.
And what I also noticed in the series, too, this was funny when I was watching some of the episodes, Frank's always the one checking them at the hotel. He's always at the front desk, if you notice in the episodes.
Yeah.
He's at the front desk, and Sean's off talking to some girl somewhere.
Joe is off talking to a girl.
Yes.
I was watching Acapulco Spies. I was watching that, and they had to go check in Acapulco because their dad was missing, and they had to figure out what happened. Big old miscommunication. They think these 2 girls are the contact that they're supposed to meet to help them find their dad. But Frank is off at the desk, being the big brother, making sure everything is getting taken care of.
Yes.
And there's Joe spying these 2 girls off in the distance. And, so that was the way they made it. Joe was kind of the girl chaser, and Frank was always taking care of business.
Taking care of business, right.
Yeah.
And I also read, too, that Frank and Joe are they're supposed to be somewhat wealthy, right? This is the idea of it.
Right.
And they often travel to faraway places. They can go to Mexico. They go to Scotland. They go to Iceland. There's a place in Egypt, Kenya. There's all these shows that are around these different areas that they go to. And they also travel by different ways. They go by motorcycle, motorboat, ice boat, train, airplane.
Yes.
It sounded like a James Bond movie.
Yeah,
almost.
like their little James Bond.
A younger version of James Bond.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was kind of funny. I read that. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
How many 19-year-old kids, Frank was saying he has his pilot license for small planes or something, because he had to take down the plane that was getting ready to crash in the Bermuda Triangle.
Oh, right.
So he had to land the plane, and I'm like, man, you guys got pilot licenses at 19 years old?
Yeah, right. And I think they learned a lot from their father. Their father was a detective.
Right.
They wanted to do what their father was doing, so they followed along and got involved with all these mysteries.
Yeah, but they said even in reality with Sean and Parker, it was funny to watch them do these investigations, because they said, man, in real life, they would even be able to do them.
Right.
The way they got into it. Well, this show, the house on the show was located at the Universal Studio on Colonial Street, where Cleaver's second home, remember, from Leave It to Beaver once stood?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it said the Hardy Boys house is known as the Johnson home, I guess. And like I had talked to you girls about earlier, it was also used as Tom Hanks' movie. Is it called The Burbs or
The
something?
Burbs, yeah.
All right. Well, I just had read that little bit of research, And I also read that Leslie MacFarlane wrote the original books for the Hardy Boys. And
apparently they were a ghostwriter. So they went under the name Dixon.
In these shows, I had fun watching them because you could just see these guys driving around in their groovy wood-paneled van. It reminded me of something that my own kids would do.
Yeah, I always wonder where that van was, just like you wonder where the Partridge Family bus went. Where did the Hardy Boys van go?
It's some big scrap
so cool.
metal yard somewhere.
Aw, no way.
Yeah, for sure. It was just a van.
They each had their vehicle.
Yeah.
Had to be a cool vehicle.
But now, after talking to Parker, as I told you girls, I have a huge admiration for him now. And he also said that Sean and him couldn't have been more different, but he said they had the same sense of humor. And so that was fun for them on the show. They would just crack each other up all the time.
Sometimes you can see that through the show, too, like when they were watching the Hardy Boys. Sometimes you can sense that, I think.
Well, he said it really didn't make sense because he was preppy, Ivy League type of child, while I say teen, and he was the heir to the entertainment. Well, that was Sean. So it was just interesting how they had that chemistry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it worked. It worked great. Oh.
Yeah, they crack you up. They cracked me up, and they had so much fun. Talk about, like you said, the chemistry.
And Frank never wanted to listen to hear Joe thing or
Yes.
Joe would go do some songs and Parker had something else to do.
Frank would be off doing his whole checking out some clue about the mystery or something.
Yes. Joe would look, where are you going? I'm not done yet.
Every time.
Every time.
Well, the show called Wipeout, that one was funny too because his little tape recorder that you guys are mentioning, that actually saved lives because he thought, well, if my brother's not going to listen, I'm just going to record myself singing up here on stage here in Hawaii. Yep. And so he used that little tape recorder up there and his brother would take off like he had something else to do every time.
Okay, but a question. Did Frank ever in any of the episodes ever listen to the whole song he sang?
I don't think there was ever an episode.
There was never a closure with that.
Frank sat through an entire Joe Hardy.
I was wondering about that. I'm like, was there ever closure? And Frank said, hey, I listened to your whole song.
But speaking of the little tape recorder, a lot of people may not remember, so we'll just tell you real quick that tape recorder that James talking about is Cindy and I would record the Hardy Boys on our little cassette players and cassette recorders, and we would put the microphone up to the TV and try to record every Sunday. The Hardy Boys would come on, and she lived by the airport, and I would have brothers. So Cindy had planes going on over the house making noise. And I had brothers breaking into the room, screaming and yelling.
And I never went back to listen to them, so I don't even know if I heard a plane going over when I recorded that. Did you ever go back and listen to yours?
Yeah, and I had brothers.
And you heard them in the background?
Yeah, they would come in, and they would do it right when they knew I couldn't pause it because it was in the middle.
Right.
Not at a commercial.
You couldn't pause a show at that time.
Yeah.
It was on, and then the commercial came on, then you could pause it. And I think I did pause during commercials. I didn't want the commercials
I would hit
in
pause at my commercial.
So you had to pay attention.
Yeah, this was a job.
This was a job.
Yeah. Yes. Well, luckily now you can just go on like Peacock, and so that's for anybody. They can go back and watch all the Hardy Boys.
Oh, it's great now because back then, when we recorded on this cassette, this was the only memory we were going to have ever.
Yeah. Who knew?
Who knew? Like this was it. Like you have to keep this cassette. So I had a box, and I put all my cassettes in a box. And it traveled with me until it got lost somewhere. But that was going to be our only memory. But now, who knew these days you could find it anywhere?
I got those cassettes, and they're all crumbly and everything.
But I would still love to hear one of those cassettes.
You'll never hear it.
I would like to see you try to play one. Let's try an experiment and see if those Hardy Boy tapes work.
That would be a hard no. They won't play. Well, find a cassette player. Well, I do have a cassette player.
Okay, we'll try it. We'll try it one day and see if those cassettes hold up.
We used to use those to record in our classes too, so we could remember what the teacher was saying.
Oh yeah, that was the medium back then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was cassette.
And then that little tape, that little tiny one with the little tiny cassette.
Oh yeah,
You know,
those
and I think
micro
that's
cassettes came along
funny?
later.
Yeah, I think about 83 cassettes, video VCRs came out.
I think they were out a little sooner, but they were for people with money.
Or beta, right? People with money.
We couldn't afford a.
But it was beta and VCR.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I got married, my mother-in-law bought us a beta and a VCR because she thought the beta was going to be popular.
Yeah.
But it ended up being the VHS. Yes.
I used to have the beta because I thought that was going to be the popular one.
Right.
So the first one I bought was a beta, and
I think back then they didn't know which way they were going with them. But
well, we never know what's next. But
I did. Oh no,
it's amazing.
Yes, a few years later when Sean was on Solid Gold or whoever with Marilyn McCoo
yes,
singing, I remember using the VHS tape at work. I was working and it came on and I used their VHS player at work.
Yes.
And I did tape Sean on that Solid Gold episode with Marilyn McCoo singing that Willie Nelson song.
Way to use work resources there,
Yes.
Cindy.
And I told everybody at work, I said, I need to record this. And it was new back then.
need.
Yeah. But it worked out really well. I had it for a while, but then I don't remember recording anything else after that.
That's what we do. Well,
sorry, Sean, it's a habit.
You got to record. You just have to, and it's just going to be what it is.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to share?
On the one called Campus Terror, I didn't really like that one because it turned Valerie Bertinelli into something just like almost scary.
Oh, yeah, I
because
just
she had
watched
those
that
two
one.
personalities.
Yes.
I don't like it.
I watched that one.
I really did not like it.
But she was a new actress. You know how Parker talked about new talent coming out? She was one of them.
Yeah.
Well,
Valerie Bertinelli.
They had her with two personalities. And she started being all sweet to Sean because
To
she's
Joe?
his ex-girlfriend. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, we got to stay in character.
Yeah.
So
I remember just watching that. And Valerie Bertinelli I was like, man, they made her into something almost scary. And I always thought she was so cute.
I do remember that, but she was so young.
Yes.
So young.
Do you girls remember the ending of that one? I did not like the ending of it because Joe said that he was going to get her help because she had to be in that psych ward.
Right.
Well, then he said he'd be back for her. In other words, he still would love her and he would still be coming back someday, that wouldn't go away. And at the very end, she said, oh, thank you. And then she looks out a window or something and she gives some creepy look at the very end. So
like she hasn't really
like, haha, I'm not going to change. I'm still going
But
to
I
have
think
that other personality.
But didn't she get that kiss at the end?
Oh, she got the kiss.
Yeah,
but
she
then
got the kiss.
But just like a crazy ex might do, she looked out the window like, haha.
I don't know how Sean fans like these kisses on the show there. I don't know. What'd you think about that, Doris?
When Joe Hardy would kiss the girl, I didn't mind
He
it.
always had the girl.
Yeah.
Oh.
Always.
And I thought that was kind of cool. I'm like, good for you, Joe. You got the girl. I'll be one of them one day. Don't you worry. I'm coming.
Oh, yeah. Did see Frank kissing a girl. It was one where he's standing out by the ocean and she had that short hair. And at first I thought, there's a couple guys. And I was like, no, that's a pretty cute girl.
Oh.
He was with.
Okay.
Yes.
And then
so they did show him like that.
he was going to go hang gliding in Acapulco
Yes,
Spice, and the
that was
girl kissed him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Gave him a good luck kiss.
I remember that part. But my favorite kiss is actually with the of Frank's. Joe's, I mean.
Yeah.
No, this one was Joe's, and it was called The Last Kiss of Summer. And I didn't like that show because of what happens to his fiance, but I did like it because of the scenery, the ocean scenery.
Definitely.
All at the beginning of that show just really, really took me in. And it's fine. He was kissing his fiance. The show turned out to be kind of sad because he loses her. But his big brother was always off nearby, too, to help him. But in this one, it was Sean kissing his fiance, and the ocean was in the background. And doesn't he ask her to marry him right there?
Yeah,
And
that was a beautiful scene. It was a beautiful scene.
It was so beautiful. So
Right.
hint, guys, if you're listening to this, maybe you need to try that if you plan on asking somebody to marry you, because it was gorgeous. Have somebody filming, by the way.
Yeah. And I want to mention, too, about all these famous people that were on the show, too, whether they were starting out or not. But you would know their names, like Mark Harmon, Jamie Lee Curtis was on there. Bob Crane, remember him from Hogan's Heroes?
Yes, Bob Crane.
He was on there. Rick Nelson.
Rick Nelson. Yeah, I could see them getting Ricky
Ozzie and
Nelson.
Harriet.
Rick Springfield.
Well, he was
too,
on a
right?
Nancy Drew episode.
Oh, okay.
He did a Nancy Drew episode before.
Okay.
And then the one I watched was with Melanie Griffith, and she was young too, but she did such a great job with the acting. I was highly impressed by it. I was like, wow, she's just starting out. And
Yeah.
I was amazed.
They had a ton of, before they were stars, people
Exactly.
who getting their first or, beginning roles on the Hardy Boys.
Right.
They were doing a lot of shows that, the agent sent you out and said, here, go audition for all these, and they get them.
Right.
Well, Doris, you were saying something that was kind of funny about these shows, and I thought the same thing. I kept seeing them with this dumb piece of tape, and they kept going around looking for fingerprints, and I'm like, that would be so tedious.
Well, okay, so let me set this up.
Okay,
In one of the episodes, the Acapulco Spies episode, one of the things they were doing, and this is long before a lot of technology, but Frank and Joe were learning how to transfer fingerprint from one surface to another. And I'm watching this episode, and they get to the scene where they have to lift their dad's fingerprint off of a playing card and transfer it to his briefcase because they want to trick someone into believing their dad had just touched that briefcase. Well, it was so funny because you put a piece of Scotch tape over the original surface, you lift the print off, and you take it over to the new surface, you lay the Scotch tape down, press it down, then peel the tape back, and the fingerprint is supposed to transfer.
Yeah.
So I'm watching this, and I didn't remember watching this episode as a girl back in the day, but then I get to this scene, and I go, he's going to get Scotch tape and transfer the fingerprint.
Yeah, you remembered.
That scene stood out in my mind for all of these years, how to transfer a fingerprint. I guess in case I ever needed it for whatever reason.
Well, you never know. Still could come in handy.
Never know.
Well,
Yeah. And I have a fun fact too. I don't know if you guys knew, but the series received an Emmy nomination.
The Hardy Boys
Yeah.
did?
Mm-hmm.
no way.
Which season?
It doesn't say this season, it says the series received an Emmy nomination and featured a number of guest stars. Even Kim Cattrall was on there.
Was she?
I don't know
Before
which episode.
She became Sex in the City. She was.
Yeah, right? So you never know when you watch something, this person is going to be pretty famous.
Well, yeah, it was all just like back in the day when all the stars would be on the Partridge Family, or even before that,
Yeah.
Adam 12, or before that,
Right.
Bonanza. Those TV series, if it was a hit TV series, wannabe stars would try to get a
You were
role
on
on
it.
them
Yes.
so they could boost their career.
Same with the Partridge Family we
Yeah.
talked about before. They have these people come on and they're starting out and they get to get on the show and they go off from there.
Any of them. I get a kick out of watching old TV shows and seeing a lot of big stars today.
Yes.
I'm talking even back before the shows we know. I watch reruns of the Dick Van Dyke Show or something real old, and you go, oh, they were doing the same thing. They were getting their boost on these shows.
Exactly.
And you go, oh, that's so-and-so. They were on
Yes.
and
I recognize that face.
and now here they are, a household name.
And Parker was talking in his interview, too, about Melanie Griffith being on there. Her mom was on the set to make sure everything was okay for her and that things went well. So, yeah, I loved watching that episode. She did a great job.
She did, but I wouldn't want to put my daughter in that,
No.
character
Nope.
because it was cute because she got to kiss Joe.
But it was a
But-
scary house on the hill or something like that. So she
I
had
don't
to
know.
deal with
I
this
just couldn't-
house, this
Yeah,
empty
I just
house.
really couldn't. Well, oh yeah, you're talking about Melanie Griffith?
Yes, in her
So,
episode.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch that one because I started watching it and then I stopped.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to keep watching that one
Mhm.
because the other one that I thought was just as bad was that one with Valerie Bertinelli in it, and it just really, I was like, okay, this may be one of her first times to act, and she's doing great, but it sure doesn't go with what I saw her in other shows.
Right. Exactly. She went from that character to One Day at a Time, Sweet Innocent
Right.
Barbie. You
Right.
know,
So it
nobody.
was so opposite.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And did you know during the second season, the series format changed and it more focused on the Hardy Boys and the Nancy Drew? Remember in the beginning, it was Hardy
Yes.
Boys and Nancy Drew?
Yes.
And then the second season, they made it more towards the Hardy Boys. And then Nancy Drew would just do some crossovers with them
Yes.
after that. Because, of course, Sean was getting more popular and they were more focused on the Hardy Boys. Now, Sean was starting to sing on the shows, things
Yeah.
like that. So it got more notoriety.
I noticed something about Pamela Sue Martin. Later on, I know she joined Dynasty or the cast of that. But what was funny was that I could actually think of her as kind of cool. At first, I was like, but then I learned that she joined Apollo team, but then she took a Volkswagen minibus and ran around with her son. How cool is that?
Yeah,
cool.
that's pretty
That's
cool.
cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Remember when Hardy Boys first started, when the Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, it was 3 different Sundays. It was Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, Brady Bunch Variety Hour.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Nobody remembers
No.
that. It was the Brady Bunch Variety Hour was the 3rd Sunday. And then they would do it again. And the Brady Bunch show didn't last long.
No.
And it was just them singing and dancing. It
Right.
was all of them except for Alice.
Except for
But
Alice.
it was all of the main characters, and they would
I watched
do a
it.
variety show.
Yeah, I watched it.
And
Well, if you think about it, these shows are good feeling shows, and so
Yeah, I think more so in the 70s that was geared towards that.
it was. It
Mhm.
was. And well, the 50s, okay. But then as it gets into nowadays, it's all this reality stuff, which may be good or bad. But even looking back at some of the lifestyle in the 70s or the 50s or 60s or whatever,
Right.
when we compare it to now with us being so busy, just going
Yes.
on and on and on as women,
Yep.
with our jobs and stuff. So, but still, we still like to go back to these old shows
We do.
and get that warm feeling once again.
Yeah,
in the
and the
middle of our
Hardy
messy
Boys.
house.
Yeah, and they did 3 seasons, and actually the 3rd season they dropped Nancy Drew character altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know
Yeah.
that?
Yes.
yeah, no Nancy.
And it was just shortened to the title of the Hardy Boys. That was it for the 3rd
Yeah,
season.
I noticed that too.
And I want to tell you too, I have this TV guide in front of me. Let me tell you the date. It's May 29th to June 4th, 1977. The Hardy Boys are on the cover. It's from the Chicago Tribune newspaper. So I flip it to Sunday because Sunday at 6 p.m.
Yeah,
Hardy Boys are on, right?
in Chicago
So-
at 6 p.m.
This is what it says for the episode for that night. The Hardy Boys, believing their father is on a fishing trip, spot him coming out of a hotel in a nearby city. When they see the 2 men trailing their father, they follow and are off on a suspenseful adventure. I wonder what episode that was. Doesn't say. Doesn't say the episode, but that was that day in history.
What year was it?
1977,
Okay, the first
May
season.
29th.
All right, so we just have to look on your DVD box set over there and see what was near the end of season 1, 1977.
Oh, well, let me see if it even lists all of them on here because I don't know if it listed in order. I don't think it does. There's nothing on the back that says each
Oh.
episode.
No.
So we can't really tell.
Oh, and it's not open.
Unless somebody out there knows what the name of that episode was, let us know.
Well, I didn't bring mine. In the meantime,
Well, Sean had auditioned for a role for Happy Days. Well, he didn't get that one, but that wasn't a problem because the second one he auditioned for was the Hardy Boys. And Jamie Lee Curtis auditioned for the role of Nancy Drew. I don't know if you girls knew that.
I
Did
did
you know
not
that?
know that.
And this was really cool for Sean back in those days. He earned, it said, $15,000 per week on the show. But where he pulled in the most was on all of his royalties, like all this stuff that I have collected and put in my closet. That's where he did really well. But everybody wanted a picture of Sean. So if it was on anything, it would sell. And
Well, that's part of being a teen idol.
You said
Fan.
that
I still do it.
you said he lost the role to Ron Howard.
Well, he was auditioning for the lead in John Wayne movie is what I meant. It's called The Shootist. And then it said that he lost out to Happy Days star Ron Howard. Yeah.
Well, what's funny is he was here's our 6 degrees for this episode. So Sean Cassidy loses a role to Ron Howard, who works with Shirley Jones in 2 movies.
Isn't that
That's
crazy?
right.
Oh, it's 6 degrees.
Yeah, you know what the last episode was? It was called Life on the Line. Aired January 14th, 1979, and it was the final appearance of Sean Cassidy and Parker Stevenson in the Hardy Boys. It was about Joe and Frank are assigned to protect a motocross racer, the daughter of a mob informant who has been threatened by assassins, but a strange woman has become obsessed with Frank. Oh, so
Whoa.
Frank did have a woman somewhere.
I just remember the one I was telling you about by the ocean. But anyway, yes, so cool. All of these shows. And I also watched one that was called The Secret of the Whispering Walls or something. Oh, and they were using like what we have now. Was it the green screen and all that?
Yeah.
And they were using different effects. And I thought that was so funny because it was so corny, but they were still beginning to use some of the new technology that they use all the time
Right.
in what they make now.
Yeah.
But to watch that one where the wall disappears, it looks so fake, but yet they were learning. They were starting to learn the stuff that is leading into the technology of today. Do you remember that one?
Right.
Yes. The wall or something where the floor disappears or something like that. And then they get a beautiful old, like antique looking room. And then that room disappears. And I forget what they were looking for.
But interesting about how they use special effects then and now.
Mhm.
Everything is AG or AI now or whatever.
Yeah, everything is artificial intelligence, and you got the graphics.
Yeah, right.
Mhm. So much better.
Crazy.
So much.
Can you imagine if they did the Hardy Boys these days with those graphics?
Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Hardy Boys fan club.
Did we all join the fan club?
Dame, did you join? You didn't join the fan club.
Well, I just joined Scholastic all the time. But as far as being up to date with all the fan club and stuff, no, I didn't get to do that.
Okay.
Okay, well, I joined the Hardy Boys fan club.
Me
back
too.
In the day, and Cindy joined. And I brought with me today my Hardy Boys fan club membership card
Woohoo!
in the same wallet that it has been in since the day I got it. And inside of there are also 4 little wallet-sized pictures that came with your membership.
I remember that.
And I have Frank Hardy and Joe Hardy, and each 2 pictures each. And
They're like 2 by 2, right? They're small, like wallet-sized pictures.
Wallet size.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have left of my fan club membership, because one day when I was at school, my mother went into my room and took all of my Hardy Boys membership stuff and threw it away.
Aw.
So I don't have anything except for what I had with me that day, which is why I cherish it and keep it in that same wallet and carry it everywhere I go. I don't carry it with me. It stays safe at home, but every move I make sure I have it.
What I have learned about you, Doris, is that it's the memory behind the things that you have.
Right.
So I noticed that about you. So that's why your little personal cards meant so much to you. You have the story behind it.
Yes.
And it was yours to begin with.
Yes.
It meant so much more to you.
It has to have a meaning.
Personal.
A personal
meaning.
attachment. And my membership to the Hardy Boys fan club, just the whole story behind the little heartbreak I felt when I came home from school and all of my stuff was gone. So, yeah. But having that card, you look at that little blue card.
It's in good condition.
And it never left that wallet. And you go, okay, so what exactly did this thing get me?
I know. Well, here, I have this little pamphlet that I sent away for the Hardy Boys Nancy Drew fan club.
Mhm.
Okay, now read you on the back what you get with the fan club stuff. So you get 2 8x10 autograph photos, a 5x7 and 4x5 photo, 6 wallet-sized photos, which is what you have. You get a biography. You get a giant 16x20 poster, which I think I have. That's what I brought with me today.
Yes.
It's 16x20 poster, the 2 of them on the Hardy Boys set.
Oh, I have that one too.
Yeah, so it came with that. You get an official fan club charter membership scroll suitable for framing. Do you remember getting that, Doris? A scroll?
No, but it must have been there.
Yeah, right. And then you get a full color pocketed folio to hold all your fan club info.
Yes.
Also great to keep your papers in.
It was. I remember the folio, and I loved it because it had like the pockets, like it says.
Yeah.
And you could put all your stuff in there.
I don't remember that one, but I'm sure I had it. And then the fan club newsletter. Did you get a newsletter quarterly? Keeps you informed of upcoming events, performances, and activities.
I think the Hardy Boys may have went off before I got
Okay.
my newsletters quarterly because I don't remember getting
It was
them.
only 3 years, so I don't remember that. And the last thing was an official fan club membership card, which we got.
Yeah.
I lost mine, but yes, you have yours. And I remember when we were interviewing Parker, I asked you about the expiration date. Is your card still good?
It says that my card expired March of 1979.
Oh, just
Can
a little
you
bit over.
believe that?
You better renew it. You're not going to be able to use it anywhere.
Yeah, I better. This official membership card is not transferable, so I can't give it to you, Cindy.
Oh,
Dave.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says it's embossed and personalized, so they do put your name on it, and you get a special number on it, right?
Yeah, here's my number, 025100.
Oh, we can get into your account now.
Oh, yeah. I was 025100. Got my name and everything.
That number entitles you to fan club privileges, including special offers. Yeah, special offers and posters, buttons, and more. Bonus, join both clubs and receive a free door banner for your room. So if you're part of Nancy Drew, you get a door banner.
Oh, boy.
Wow.
I think we got ripped off. I don't think we got all that.
I don't remember receiving any of these special
Me either.
bonuses and things.
Me
but-
either. But I must have sent for 2 of them, sent away because one of the coupons I still have my name on it. I was 14 years old. A 1-year membership cost $5.
Wow, that was a bargain.
That's a bargain back then. Hardy
Yeah.
Boy
Oh,
Fan
really?
Club. Yeah.
Okay.
Please enroll me as a charter member. What's a charter member mean?
You're
VIP.
You're
I'm a VIP?
yeah.
Oh,
Charter.
okay. I'm a charter member of the official Hardy Boys Fan Club.
I guess I didn't have $5 because I only had a few dollars at a time to buy the books and everything I could as far as posters. But girls, I did get many things that were Hardy Boys. They meant so much to me. Of course, I have the DVDs and the videos, but it's easier just to get on the app of Peacock now. You know, it's quicker and it's
Right.
so handy to just use that. But as you know, I have many dolls that are of the Hardy Boys. I actually have a couple of them that have never been opened, and I have them in their original boxes.
Oh, nice.
And my friend, Jamie Hamill, knew how much I liked Sean Cassidy. And so she was in an antique store and she found a Hardy Boys record player and she gave it to me. And I thought that was so nice of her. So it's like Doris liking the story behind it, where I didn't just buy it off of eBay. But the fact that she took time to give me that meant a lot to me.
Right now, we want to bring up before we end the episode, we always like to go back to Tiger Beat and check what Tiger Beat says
Yes.
about things. Well, there was a column apparently every month that came out in Tiger Beat called The Truth from Sean and Parker. So every month, girls would send in their questions and ask questions to Sean and Parker so you could see what was going on with them while they were doing the Hardy Boys.
Dear Sean and Parker, my friend told me you were nearly killed while filming a stunt for the Hardy Boys. Is that true? If it is, I sure hope nothing like that happens again. You're my favorite stars. I love you both. That was from Cindy of Denver, Colorado. So, dear Cindy, we have had a few close calls. Maybe your friend was referring to the time we were filming an underwater scene together in a glass-lined tank. The heat from the high-intensity lamp outside the tank cracked the glass and water began pouring all over the place. We managed to get out of the tank before the water made contact with the light cord. We could have been electrocuted.
Yikes. That is
Yeah.
scary.
That is pretty darn scary.
That's scary. I have another one, and it says, Dear Sean and Parker, did you ever read the Hardy Boy books before you won the roles in the TV show? And it says, Dear Chris, this is from Chris from New York. Dear Chris, no, neither of us did. We weren't even aware that there were books until the series came up.
And that's kind of funny.
Yeah,
'cause
isn't that funny?
We just said we didn't really know too much about there were books.
Right, so they didn't either.
Didn't you have a
Yes.
fun fact, Cindy, about the books and how it was the anniversary or something?
Oh, yeah, when they started filming the Hardy Boys in 77, apparently it was the 50th anniversary of the Hardy Boys.
Oh,
So
okay.
I don't remember them mentioning that back then, but I read about at that time was the 50th anniversary of having the books.
How cool.
Yeah.
Dame, didn't you tell me that you read that the books were written in the 20s? There were some editions of it from the 1920s.
Yes, I believe that's where it all started.
Okay.
And so I know that I've even looked at some of the old editions, and those have to be so collectible.
Yeah, there's so many
So I believe
versions of the
that's
Hardy Boys.
Yes, it's fun to see how they changed over, over the decades,
with the
from
decades.
the
Yeah.
20s to the 50s on the Mickey Mouse Club to the 70s, the Hardy Boys that we know and love, and then what they could do in the 21st century.
It said that the books came out in the 20s, like you just said, Doris. 2 or 3 generations had already been invested, though, in the Hardy Boys by this time. And that's when we went into like the Mickey Mouse show was after that in the 50s.
Yeah.
And now the new series is called the Hardy Boys Case Files.
Oh,
So you can still watch a new version.
I never knew. I'll try to find that.
Yeah, doesn't say where it's at, but there was a new version.
Well, I thought it was cute too when it's talking about Sean and Parker, where it said that part was exactly under that where I researched. It said what they lacked in credentials, they made up for intelligence.
Oh, that's
So,
true.
or with their hair, or with their incredible hair, made up for anything.
They
'Cause
both
their
had good
was so
hair.
luscious.
You know
Yeah.
what's funny too?
Obviously.
Because when I used to remember watching the Hardy Boys and making sure my tape was playing,
Mhm.
I was always just watching what Sean was doing. So if you tell me what the episode was about, I kind of know it, but it was like, okay, Sean's on. I have to pay attention to what he's doing, how he's looking, and all my attention was there. So I can't tell you details about the show because
So you were looking at the hair.
I had to focus on my cassette player and I had to make sure, and see I had to listen to Sean every time he talked. That was my focus.
That's funny.
You know,
That's
and that's
funny.
really cute. That is so cute. But now that we've talked to Parker and he took time to listen to us and
Mhm.
talk to us, I have a whole different admiration for him.
Yeah, he was a great
Yeah.
guest.
Yeah, his character Frank Hardy is probably not a lot different than Parker himself.
Exactly. That's
Maybe
probably why I liked it.
not a whole lot different.
No, but he
Yeah.
does have fond memories of back those days.
The Hardy Boys just seems to be it to endure. The Hardy Boys seems to endure. They've
Yeah.
gone from the 20s all the way through the 90s. In the 90s, in 1995, there was another adaptation simply called The
Yeah.
Hardy Boys, which was produced by a Canadian company. And there are Hardy Boys streaming series, and that one is starring Rowan Campbell and Frank and Alexander Elliott as Joe. And that was released on December 4th, 2020.
Wow.
Didn't know that.
No?
It's by Hulu, and it's with Joan Lambert and Steve Cochran executive producing the series. So there that is in 2020, and they're saying several Hardy Boys video games have been released over the years, and there's been a comic book. So,
there was also supposed to be different names for the boys. They were going to be called either the Keen Boys, the Scott Boys, the Hart Boys, or
Yeah.
the Bixby Boys. There were different names in play to pick which one was the best for them.
and they wound up with the
Hardy.
Hardy Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll
And-
take it.
And they have endured for what is 100 years?
1926. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's almost 2026.
yeah,
Couple years.
yes.
Wow.
I can do that easy math. And,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
this has been
Amazing.
one of our favorite TV shows of all time. Of course, it gave us Sean and Parker, especially Sean Cassidy, and it has endured for almost 100 years. That says a lot.
It
That-
sure does.
that
And it's still going.
character,
It's still going.
The characters of Joe and Frank Hardy are still going.
Still going. And I hope they still continue to go.
Me too. This was so much fun.
So much
And
fun.
we learned a lot. We shared a lot. Tell us by leaving us a comment on our Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. What were your favorite Hardy Boys episodes? Or
Or great memories from
or
it.
great memories from watching
Yeah.
the Hardy Boys on Sunday evenings.
Did anybody else use their cassette recorder? I'd like to find out if somebody else did that, or are we just the only two?
Or do you have favorite Hardy Boys trinket? We look forward to hearing about it.
Thank you from the bottom of our teen dream hearts.
Keep on crushing.
Always believe in magic.
And have a peaceful, shantastic week.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, and make sure to keep in touch with us on our email.
SeanSquadSociety@gmail.com.
The Sean Squad Society podcast, including past, present, and future versions, and its contents, are owned and controlled by the Sean Squad Society. The views and opinions are solely those of the Sean Squad Society podcast. The Sean Squad Society is written and produced and recorded at the Borden Studios. We may think we are always right, but we will get something wrong from time to time. So we assume no responsibilities or errors of submissions of content.